And welcome to episode 22 of the Down Underworld Denizens. And in this podcast, we're going to start off by talking about the High Elves. Obviously, everyone's seen all the new High Elf models that Games Workshop's released. As a intro question, what does everyone think about them, and what did they want to see, and what have they seen that they didn't want to?
Well, I'm going to kick off this one. Firstly, as a person who has just recently gotten the full squad of second edition or third edition miniatures, sorry, including paying for the fourth catcher. First of all, I love the aesthetic of the miniatures. They really they're true to the old style. They're just in a more dynamic pose. What do we think of the roster? Um, Time will tell how it goes. The only good thing from my point of view is that I don't need to change my miniatures. I just need to drop taking two of the catches, which I think are going to be called blitzers now. But I'm liking them. I can't wait for the actual release of the roster to see, the full skills and pricing and so on. But as with everything in the new edition, I'm keen as mustard to see it all going. What do you reckon, Babs?
Yeah, look, I guess what I really like about the miniatures, as Millsy said, is that it is definitely a salute to the third edition Gary Morley sculpts of the High Elves. Second edition Blood Bowl didn't have High Elves; they just had elves. So the third edition High Elves are the only High Elves that have existed for Blood Bowl.
Until now.
Uh, or other than the star player Prince Moranion. And so what if you actually grab pictures of Gary Morley's miniatures and grab these new ones, it's really clear that whoever sculpted them has done so looking at the old sculpts. So I love that. I love the salute to Gary Morley. I'm here for it. I know they've done several salutes to the late great Wayne England's artwork, and I love the fact they've done that with Gary Morley here. I hope he feels honoured. That all said, I have never particularly liked the aesthetic of High Elves. I don't know. I think it's just a me problem. Um, yeah, no High Elf team have really taken my fancy. I think my favourite is actually the miniatures sculpted by an Australian that the Kickstarter didn't succeed, and Tom Anders of Impact picked them up and ran two Kickstarters actually. One, the scale was too small, and he's now made them larger, and those miniatures are brilliant. So I love those High Elves, and so I probably, yeah, I'm not amazed by them, but they're solid. There you go. In terms of the roster, yeah, I want to know more about this High Elf blocker, which is the Lion Warriors that have wrestle and claws. That I want to know more detail because obviously wrestle and claws don't work together. It's one or the other. I'm interested to know more detail, and so yeah, to see how this team works. I thought High Elves were the passing team, a passing team without catches. Maybe Elven Union have taken that role from High Elves. I'll just have to wait and see. What about you, Wilts?
Well, just touching back on the third edition miniatures from 1994. Whether you think they belong on the Blood Bowl pitch specifically or otherwise, I think Gary Morley did a really good job capturing the aesthetic of the early 90s High Elves models, and they fit in really perfectly with that, so you don't even think about doing the weapon snips, you just bought the models because they were better anyway. The new models certainly capture that same aesthetic and the same feel, but as Millsy mentioned, they've pivoted away from catches, and now the White Lions are the blitzers. Now it's cool that they've got the extra armor to match the rest of the team on the models. I'm going to imagine that translates to on the tabletop as well. A lot of people have had rumors about a big armor elf team and what that might look like, and do they have slower movement? I'm expecting the answer is no, they're not going to have slower movement. They're just going to be regular elf stats, but with blitzes. Millsy and I were talking a little while ago about how claws on the white lions would be an interesting skill or otherwise. I personally think it's a bit ridiculous and they should have just used them as their catching mitts like they did back in the old days. But there's certainly a lot of design space for an elf team that has more blitzes that used to be dark elves, but now apparently it's the high elf thing to do instead. And we'll see how that pans out. My biggest question for myself with the new High Elf reveals is when I'm painting my third ed 1994 High Elves, do I still paint the white lions with a yellow ring because they're catchers, or should I be painting them with a red ring because they're now blitzers in the new editions?
No, don't do it. Don't retro because it'll just mess with your head when you're playing, or your opponent's head.
Well, they'll still be different from the Dragon Princes. As long as they're different, that's all that matters for the most part, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or do I need to get two extra white lions so I can have four with yellow rings for catches and two with red rings for blitzers?
Now you're thinking like GW corporate.
Yeah, just get more. Just get more. It's fine.
Hey, that's a great intro to our news section. So let's transition formally into our news section. And the first thing is that the NAF, we've already mentioned this in previous episodes of Down Underworld Denizens, but the NAF have been busy in the absence of a president, and they've showered us with not one Christmas gift, but two, or one came out early January. The two documents are the NAF Recommendations and Clarifications for Blood Bowl 25 and the NAF Regulations for Tournaments Guide. So there's two separate documents there. Millsy, I'm going to tag to you. Tell us a little bit about the NAF Recommendations and Clarifications for Blood Bowl 25.
Alrighty. Well, most people would know them as an FAQ. However, this time the NAF has put out the FAQ and not Games Workshop. Now, I've been online, I've listened to many podcasts and people talking about the validity of can the NAF do this. Um, I think it's a good job by NAF. Basically, they've come out and said these are what we think will help a tournament run better. We're not telling you what to do or how to do it. This is what we think on this rules clarification. This is what we don't. Now, there's 82 clarifications in there. Do I agree with every single one of them? No. I personally think some of them should have been different. Will I run with them though? Yes. And that's the best thing about this. The NAF have put them out and said, look, tournament organisers, this is what we recommend for you. You do not have to use any of them. You do not have to use all of them. But having that one single document to say, this is what we're going to do in an interim until Games Workshop comes out with theirs in May. I don't see a problem with the NAF doing this because we still have to run NAF tournaments between now and the FAQ coming out. I don't think the NAF has overstepped the mark in doing this. They've just come out and said this is what we believe would be, would help run tournaments easier or smoother. And if we're all running this, then there's no problem.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, a tournament's a really difficult thing to find the time and energy to organize and put together and try and get people to attend. So everything that can be done to make a tournament organizer's job easier, like having an FAQ that actually is relevant to the questions people have, definitely goes a long way towards making that job easier. Even if people do have different opinions or want to make different rulings, having a good starting point means that everyone's aware of some issues. If they choose to make a different ruling themselves, that's cool. No one's saying they can't, but it just means that people are aware of the issues that exist and trying to make a solid statement towards that's a great start. As far as the NAF making rules changes, for the most part, everything I've read in the document is that they're trying to follow the rules as close to the way they're written in the rulebook as possible. For example, ultimately, we all know that strip ball should work against stand firm. Just the way it's written in the rulebook doesn't really say that it does. So that's the way they've leaned so far in their FAQ. Obviously, Games Workshop has the final say when they release their FAQ, and things will probably change in that direction. But until then, they're going as close as possible to the rules the way they're written, even though a lot of us have opinions about the way the rules are intended otherwise or previously.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. I think just backing the truck up right to the beginning. The first thing is the rulebook needed something, right? It needed something.
It
And
needed proofreading, is what it needed.
and Games Workshop made a decision to not bring out a comprehensive FAQ designer's commentary document until May. Now, I'm pretty confident that the NAF were told that they weren't going to bring something out till May, so the NAF have stepped in here. So first thing is we needed something. Second thing is the NAF realised we need a common language. We need a common start point to be able to have rules discussions. That's what this document does. It doesn't presume to have the same authority as something from GW, but it does provide a common understanding for coaches. So as both Millsy and Wilson said, it is brilliant for tournament organisers to use and refer to. And I note the NAF are actually pretty cruisy at this point. They say, you want to make a ruling different to this document? We will still happily approve your tournament with that change. Just make sure that change is in your own rules pack for the tournament. Just be clear about what change you're making.
Yeah, 100%.
So honestly, I've heard so much grief about, oh, the NAF are, stepping outside of their responsibility. No, they aren't. They've actually done everything that was needed for us as a community. How about being thankful for what the NAF have done? And, I could get on my hobby high horse here about actually people need a bit of a stop and think that when GW make decisions, they don't do it in isolation. They actually have their own playtesters that we've already complimented on down Underworld Denizens twice. Those playtesters are members of our community. They are in discussion with the NAF from time to time. As I said, I strongly suspect GW told the NAF that they weren't bringing out an FAQ designer's commentary until May. There is that communication channel that already exists. So when GW do bring out a change, it's not in isolation. It's in discussion. It's in feedback. And we've been told that's how they work. So the fact that the NAF have actually stepped in here and produced a document until May, I'm here for it. And look, if the one in May is not comprehensive, the NAF will probably continue to have some additional clarifications in there. As Millsy said, I've been right through this document. I already knew there were a bunch of issues that needed resolving. I'm delighted. As far as I can see, the NAF have addressed the vast majority of them and has already stated they're going to continue to update the document to address future issues as they are arisen. As we find them. For example, if you roll a 13 on the prayers to Nuffle table and you get the 2 star player points for every foul casualty, if you have the special rule, like if you're a greenskin team, is it Badlands Brawl? What's the rule? Brawling Brutes. If you're a Brawling Brutes, do you get 3 star player points for a casualty with that prayers to Nuffle, or do you only get 2? I don't know.
Well, that's more of a league question than a tournament question, but that's certainly an issue that people can ponder in their spare time.
Exactly. So, I think the NAF are going to continue to add to this document as we continue to find things. And there's one that just popped up in my head today. So what I'm saying is that I think the NAF have done a brilliant job. Absolute hats off. We should be thankful that they've done an absolute stellar job. Out of those 82 clarifications, there are 4 I probably would have ruled differently on out of 82. It's pretty high. And the only 4, all 4 of them, none of them are anything I need to get a bee in my bonnet about. Like, they're not major. They're not significant. As a tournament organizer, I'm just going to run with it as it is.
Going back to what I said, do I agree with all of them? No. Will I abide by them? Yes. Why? Because I have it in one single document that I can put forward and I can attach it to my tournament rules pack and say, these are the clarifications we're going to go by. Whether some of the things that I was talking about before were my biased opinion or whatever, I've had a few people tell me otherwise, that I've been wrong and so on. I'm happy to be wrong. I'm happy to have it whatever way. The thing that I'm most happy about is there is a single document that we can say, well, this is what's going to be. Whether we like it or not, let's run with it. And it's one of the best things the NAF has done, in my opinion.
And the other thing that's really cool about it is the NAF didn't just do it in the same format as GW. So, previous designer's commentary was 19 pages from memory. This one, they've squeezed 82 clarifications and changes into 3 pages. That is awesome when it comes to having a quick reference document. So,
Dot points definitely helps.
yeah, definitely does.
Yes.
I'm here for it. I loved it. I'm here for it. But they didn't stop. They didn't rest on their laurels, right? After that, they brought out the regulations for tournaments guide. Wilts, what do you think about the regulation for tournaments? What do you think about the big one that has got a lot of airtime? That Slann are back for Blood Bowl 25 as a NAF approved roster.
Well, I haven't read all the way through the updated regulations for tournaments guide. As far as I'm aware, it's just an updated version from their previous guides for the 2020 edition. Is that correct?
Yes, there's some updation. There is some updates in there. So, including things about the tournament series, including things about the new teams trophy, for example, has made its way in there. But yes, it is really just an updated version of the tournaments guide.
So, absolutely. Same as their rules clarifications are optional, but it's a good starting point. Slann are back. They're optional, but it's a good starting point that they're available if people want them to be. I know, for example, that Millsy's definitely keen that they've got an update for the new edition in line with Games Workshop's design philosophy. So while you can't have 4 of everything anymore, they've actually narrowed down a bit more niche flair for each of the positions and given them a bit more purpose, and definitely makes it a bit more exciting to see as far as on the table.
So you're here for on the ball and hit and run. Is that what I'm hearing, Wilts?
I'm here for hit and run. I think on the ball's a bit over the top, but it definitely gives them a bit more unique flavor as far as a catcher with on the ball rather than a thrower with on the ball, which a couple other teams have. My biggest personal gripe is they should have just given them all leap and very long legs, rather than leaving very long legs on a player that it doesn't matter that has it anymore.
But it does free deceptions. Still useful there.
Yeah, but it avoids the does very long legs count for Pogo because Pogo is not a leap, but it uses the rules for leap, but they're a 2+ anyway, so it doesn't matter.
And I think the other thing to note about Slann is something that you won't find in the roster, which is that you can pogo, in the case of Slann, more than once per
Multiple times
activation
per
now.
movement.
So
That's right.
that does change the dynamic of this team. I know the answer, but Millsy, what do you think?
Okay, I've been sitting back here like someone's holding me back from going ahead into it. So
Let's just hold you back that
first of
little bit
all,
longer.
no. First of all, I'd like to clarify what you guys said was wrong, and you've said that Slann are back. Slann never left. Slann, from the moment that back in the LRB days that they got approved but couldn't be in the rule set, we've had them in the NAF. So the Slann haven't gone. I think what the NAF have done have just said, well, let's update them to stay with what they're doing. They're not writing rules for them as such. Personally, would I have made the changes to what they've done? No. Do I like all of the changes? Yes and no. Now, the thing that I do like about the changes is, like Wilts alluded to there before, is the changes are in line with what GW have done. So, will Slann play differently now than what they used to previously? I believe they will. The fact that your blitzers now have hit and run, in my mind, they start becoming actual blitzers. Whereas previously, when I've used them as cage divers and so on. So they're going to run a little bit differently. The Slann catchers are now actually, with their on the ball, they're going to be in the backfield rather. I used to have them right up the front and get someone to get a ball to them. So the fact that Slann will play differently now lends into what I've been excited about with all of the other teams is that they all have a different play style now. I've played a few games with Orcs lately, and I think they're just as good, could even be better than the old roster, but they definitely play better. So that's the number one thing that I'm most happy about with the Slann. And like I said, I've seen many people online carrying on about them. The NAF can't do this, the NAF can't do that. Well, they have, and the NAF has put out, if you don't want them in your rule set, don't have them. They're not going to approve or disapprove your tournament based on whether they're in there or not. I say put them in there. With the NAF having the roster there to print out, I've got it in my next tournament that I've got ready to go in my rules pack. I've got the Slann roster in there. So when I give out the tournament rules pack, I have them in there. No one's going to be surprised by what they do. Yeah, many people have jumped on they can multiple pogos per turn now. Anyone can multiple jump per turn. If you've got leap, you can multiple leap per turn. Slann were never overpowered to start with. I think they're a bit less powered now. So having that multiple pogos per turn, I don't think is a game breaker. They're still going to be niche. They're going to be fools like me that just love them and want to play them in every game. There's going to be people that go, how the hell do you defend against them? I often say the same with vampires. How do I defend against vampires? I've played them that many times. I still can't do it. So let's not get into any of that. Let's just be happy that Slann are not back. They are still here. And that NAF have just said, well, let's update them with the same way that GW are doing it. There's my hot take on Slann.
I think the NAF have again shown their wisdom, right? At the time they produced the Slann roster, we didn't know what the High Elves were going to do. For all we knew, they were going to come out with the only elf team with 4 catches at that time. Now they've come out with a roster with 0 catches. We didn't know that, but they've reduced positionals on the High Elf team, and then the NAF have followed the same principles to revise the Slann roster. Now, just to come back to the whole Slann back thing, I think the point was we were in a holding pattern, waiting for what the roster might look like for the current edition of the game. We didn't have a team of legend for it while we were waiting. I guess that's why we used the word back. So sorry to trigger you there, Millsy. we had it as a place card.
It's a trigger.
Yes. Yeah, well, we had it as a place card in our tournament rules pack. We're going to have to update. I don't think we've updated it with the new roster. We should do that.
But I'll just jump back in there. Like, I know I might be you're being a bit pedantic here by saying Slann aren't back, but I literally want to say that they are still here. Like, a lot of people online have come in and said, you can't do this, you can't do that. Why bring them in? It's like, but they have never not been here since the LRB days became a thing. And Jervis himself commissioned them to be made, to get the roster made. Tom Anders went to pains to get the roster to play a certain way. Jervis said, yes, this is brilliant. GW then said, hey, we don't have models. We can't put them in. And so that was as official as they got. But the NAF put them in. They have just remained in the game the entire way through. I think it would be an absolute shame to get rid of them. They're not. I've had many arguments, and I've lost it myself. I get very triggered when people talk about the Slann, but they've been around for so long. They're just still here, and I don't think people should worry about them. And now that the High Elves have just been re-released, they are not in the rule book. So one of the arguments that people used to say was, well, how do people know what to come up against if it's not in the rule book? They've got to print out another document. No. It's simple, easiest thing to do is put the NAF roster in your tournament rules pack. Everybody knows what they do, what they could come up against, problem solved.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that the Slann were, as you say, approved by Jervis, but were knocked back by GW corporate because no models existed. And when Jervis was interviewed on Both Down, that was about 18 months ago, Jervis actually said the one regret he has was that the Slann didn't actually get put in the rule book. It's his one regret. And it wasn't Jervis's decision. It was something decided above him. The other thing I just wanted to point out that I'm a massive fan of in the NAF Regulations for Tournaments Guide is this wording, this sentence here. The NAF strongly recommends that coaches indicate prone or stunned status by laying miniatures down or by replacing models with appropriate markers Can I just give an amen to that and just say, hey, that's great. And I am personally going to make sure that that phrase or that a slightly modified version of that sentence ends up in my rules pack.
It's already in my rules pack. I think we've mentioned this before. It is the one thing that I don't like about the latest rule book is that it tries to tell people leave them there and put your stun markers out. And it's like, I got no problem with GW making stun markers and prone markers. They look cool and so on. But from a player looking at a pitch who I'm trying to dissect, avenues I can run through, who's standing up, what's here, what's there. The first thought you see is when you see a figure standing upwards is that it's there. Um, the fact that you've got a prone marker or a stun marker, I can't see it because it's mixed up in between them, can mess with my game, or my opponent's game. So it's the one rule, like I said in the rule book, that I do not like, and I love that they've got that in the NAF recommendations. I've already got it in my tour rules pack that unless you've got a big guy or something that doesn't fit, we're going to be laying them down just to avoid confusion for your opponent. Um, when you see a player place prone or stunned, you know that you can walk past that player because there's no tackle zones on it and so on. So, yeah, I think it's the best thing they've ever done.
Well, just touching on that, I've recently made a small purchase from Bravo's Brawl Shop. Unsponsored comment here. Johnny Wilkinson's done a great job getting some status markers out as little silicon bands. Charlie Victor has a very similar product available, but obviously shipping from the UK to Australia is an absolute killer. We did use them briefly in a game the other week between myself and Babs, but obviously there'll be a lot more games and playtesting used with with the bands instead of tokens. But so far they're definitely A, eye-catching, and B, extremely visible. So even if you're not laying the models down, if you put a band on it, it's going to be a lot more visible and a lot more immediately obvious than a token that's on the pitch next to the model that might get knocked about and maybe end up in the wrong place.
Yeah, I'd say that fixes the problem that I have. Like my problem is looking at the pitch and is that person up or down? If you've got a really big band on it that is super visible, like you say, then problem solved. I can see that that person's got something around them at first glance. So that's where can you get those words? That's it's through Johnny
Um,
Wilkinson.
Johnny
Yep.
Wilkinson's Bravo's Brawl Shop and Charlie Victor has a very similar product as well. So both of them unsponsored in this instance for status bands, but I think it's definitely an accessory that's easy to use, isn't going to damage the model because it's silicon, it's not going to scratch. So if people are worried about laying their models down because they don't want to damage their paint, the silicon bands is definitely a good way to go there.
And just to talk about that game, which was our stunty semi-final. So it was Gnomes versus stunty Lizardmen, so Skinks. Is that what Wilkes did really well was he used the stunned band, and when a miniature was placed prone, he'd lay the model down and just put the stunned band on top. When it was time to, inverted commas, roll the model over, rather than actually turning the model, he'd just take that band off. So there wasn't ever any confusion about is the model prone, is the model stunned. That's how he used the bands to indicate it, and yet he was still placing the miniature down. So it was best of both worlds, I thought. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, and a lot of people in Europe particularly have stunned tokens and coins that they've used as giveaways and as swag for tournaments. So if it's down, it's prone, and if it's down with a token, then it's stunned. So it just makes it very obvious and easy to use and follow. If people don't want to lay their models down, I'm happy to put the prone band on it. But it's going to have to be a bit more obvious than just a token that can sit next to the model and get knocked away if you move a model next to it and carry on in the heat of combat and where you go from there.
Yeah, it's got to be very visual that it catches your eye when you see it, so you're not caught out. I'm happy with those. I still prefer people lay them down, but if that's a visual process, then I'm all for it.
And look, I think my key point here, just to wrap up, ready to move on, the NAF have done a bang brilliant job. 9.95 out of 100, out of 10, 9.95.
Out of 10.
Well,
I was gonna say,
0.15 out
99.5%.
of 100 is not much.
That's not a
Okay,
great score there, Baz.
99.5%. Oh, goodness me. I'm a maths teacher too. That's terrible. Yeah. Massive fan of what the NAF have done. I think they've done an outstanding job. Well done. Hey, I want to move on to some significant news, and I don't want to alarm people. But I guess the key point I want to make before I announce it is that Down Underworld Denizens actually take our role as media very seriously. We are media as a podcast. Therefore, in a funny kind of way, the three regular commentators, Wilts, Millsy, and Babs, are journalists in a funny kind of way. And so we take our role fairly seriously in that space. So we want to actually say we've done some journalistic investigation here, and we can announce that Clare has actually moved on from overseeing Blood Bowl. He's moved from his current role within Games Workshop or Warhammer. He's actually moved upwards. He's actually moved on to what is effectively a promotional position within Warhammer. But I don't want people to be alarmed. We love Clare. I think Clare's done a great job while he was overseeing Blood Bowl within the specialist games arm of Warhammer. But I have already heard and had confirmed that his replacement was already involved in the Blood Bowl development team, and the playtesting crew, who are very experienced Blood Bowlers and very trustworthy and very knowledgeable. They really like the replacement. So just wanted to raise that, though I don't know who it is. Clare has officially left the development team for Blood Bowl. He's moved on within Warhammer, but his replacement, the person who is now leading Blood Bowl and that development team, the playtesting group like that person.
I just don't like that he's given Gutterrun a stab. That's completely unnecessary.
Poor Skidder. What's the saying out of The Incredibles? If everybody's special, then nobody is.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's had his thunder stolen by every gutter runner on the planet.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to actually talk about something that's Australian specific for Blood Bowl. So, as you are well and truly familiar, if you're a regular listener for a number of our episodes, one of the things that happens every second year, give or take, is the Ausbowl State Championships, and there is a process to be a member of your representative team at the Ausbowl State Championships for each state or territory or island in the case of New Zealand. And so many of these regions are beginning their qualification process. For that is, how do you get yourself on the team to represent your state, your island, or your territory at the Ausbowl State Championships, which is tentatively April of 2027 in Canberra. How do you make that qualification process? And you as a listener interested in competing, this is the process. And these are actually run region by region. They are individually determined. So it's up to the individual territory, for example, to decide what their qualification process is. And I just wanted to briefly run through those. Now, this is very much a very, very brief version. And so to be more accurate, the best thing to do is get in touch with the captain. So I will mention who is the captain or the acting captain. I'm going to give a very, very, very brief process. And I encourage you, if you want to know more or vie for it, make sure you're familiar with the further detail. So let me run through super briefly. All right, for Queensland, there is an 11s tournament series. Each of the tournaments in the 11s tournament series are qualification events. There is a series of points you earn according to how you do in those tournaments, and that basically you are ranked from that process. Our captain is Chris Stratford. In New South Wales, there are rankings within what's called the Waratah series, which is also a tournament series. There is a win and loss percentage in the Waratah series that will also be considered for the team. There is also annual ELO rankings from 2026 produced by the NAF that will be considered. And there's also a global Glico ranking that will also be considered. The captain of that process is James Russell Wills. He's the captain for New South Wales. For the ACT, the way you qualify is around the best 3 results from ACT tournaments in their ACT tournament series, and also includes their qualification process also includes Eucalyptus Bowl, and they have a unique scoring system. The captain is Alex McAuliffe. In Victoria, there is the Victorian Masters series of tournaments. And again, there's a point system to rank how you perform in those tournaments. The stand-in captain there is Pathfinder James, aka James Finmore. In South Australia, the highest placed South Australian coach of Southern Shrike Bowl of 2025 and 2026 both gain a spot. So congratulations to Nathan Watson, who has already qualified for the South Australian team. Now, there is no trickle downs if the highest ranked South Australian coach declines their spot. So it doesn't automatically pass on to the next person. Now, the qualification for other spots is going to be announced soon for South Australians. So there are obviously other spots you can earn through other means. In the meantime, please message the captain of the South Australian team, which is Adam Marafiotti, aka Syndex66. That's his NAF name, or just Syndex. In Western Australia, the first Western Australian coach to finish, as in top spot, or the first Western Australian coach in terms of ranking and final finishing at Bun Vegas, the first West Australian coach at the Bush Chook Cup, the first West Australian coach in a top-ranked team at the Australian Teams Championship in April, the 11th and 12th of April, to be specific. Also, the winners of the Perth League, both season 19 and 20, all earn a spot. And then the final spot on the team is given to the highest-ranked coach at 5 NAF tournaments. That could be any 5, but there are bonuses if they are at interstate or international events that earn double points. So the captain is Watto, or MJ Watto, in New Zealand. Now, New Zealand is an interesting situation because depending upon how many teams we end up for the Ausbowl State Champs depends upon whether there's going to be 1 team or 2. So that's still not decided. The top 5 tournament performances over 2025 and 2026 in their New Zealand tournament series will help decide who's going to make the team or not. Now, the other factor about whether New Zealand's going to have one team or two is around how many other teams they're going to be at the event, but also how many coaches from the South Island are going to be able to form up a team to get over to Canberra. So the North Island captain is Sanjun, aka Nick Blackwood. The South Island team is Doom Fox, aka Adam Oakson. So as I said, there's a few factors there as to whether they're going to form 1 team or 2 for Ausbowl State Champs 7 in Canberra of 2027. Now, the possibility of a new team, Millsy.
Yes, the Tasmania.
A new challenger approaches.
Yes. Tasmania, the long forgotten little island at the bottom of Australia there.
What, Antarctica?
Well, that's a bit further south. In previous episodes, we've spoken to Damien Coates, or aka Damien Frank on Facebook, with regards to what's happening in the Tassie scene. I've just recently got in touch with them through their Discord, and just asking about. Basically, I went on there and said, "Hey, look, I'm keen to have a Tasmanian holiday. I've never been there. I'd like to line it up with a tournament. What have you guys got? And by the way, I do this podcast. Is there anything you'd like me to put out there?" So At the moment, they don't have a team. They do have their first intentional 2-day tournament, which is coming up on 2nd and 3rd of May. It's Luca Bowl. Now, they did say that back in the 90s sometime there was a tournament that through scheduling errors or whatever had to be put onto a second day, but this is their first intentional 2-day event. So they're still in the grassroots at this stage. So, and I've mentioned, look, can you guys make the ASC in 2027? What they're looking at the moment is just do they have enough coaches to actually form a team? So what I'd like to do on their behalf is put the call out. Are there any expat Tasmanians in different states that would like to represent Tasmania? If you do, there's a few people you can reach out to. The easiest way is to get in contact through their Facebook page, which is the TRBBL, or the Tasmanian Recreational Blood Bowl League. They do have a Discord, but if you go onto their Facebook page, you can get their Discord invite and so on. So there's a number of people down there. Daniel Bassett, he runs like the Hobart and south part of the island. Shannon, who is Frenzied Run, runs the northwest. And Damo, or the Hahndorf Honey Badgers, he's running the Launceston or Central North of Tasmania. So what I'd implore our listeners to do, if you are a Tasmanian, you have the Tasmanian heritage, you qualify through that sort of series of being born there and so on, reach out to these guys and say, hey, look, I can make it. And if they get a few from another state, it might not be as hard for them to put forward their own team. And I've mentioned to them, look, you may or may not have any delusions of winning or losing or whatever, but the first thing you've got to do is make that team. It doesn't matter if you get on there and you come dead last. You've got to take that step of becoming the next state in Australia that represents. So I'm putting the call out to our listeners. Reach out, jump on Facebook, TRBBL, Tasmanian Recreational Blood Bowl League. Let them know that you're keen, and let's see if we can get the ball rolling for these guys. I'd love to have Tasmania on board.
Yeah, and look, as I understand it, there were 5 Tassie coaches for Blood Bowl that made the Big V, or at least were registered for the Big V last year. So, they only need one more. That could be you if you're listening. You could be the one coach they need to be able to stump up a team. And look, as Millsy's just said, if you come wooden spoon winners, just read Millsy's shirt, because wooden spoon is a podium finish, right?
It is.
Absolutely. Queensland had the honours in 2023. South Australia takes it home from last year. So it could be a third new state, potentially, the next time. Victoria.
Yes. New South Wales.
That's delusions of grandeur, but there.
Delusions of inadequacy.
But look, as I said, I don't claim to have all the details correct, and I apologise if I've got anything wrong. The key point is that Ausbowl State Championships is accessible to anybody. If you want to represent your territory, your island, your state, you reach out to the captain, get the correct version of how to qualify, or whether you can represent that state or territory. Because again, what qualifies you to represent is probably more granular than the detail I gave, but it is accessible to everybody. I want anybody who wants to have a crack to be able to. And the point is, even if you as a Blood Bowl coach are not good enough to make the team,
or don't feel like you're good enough,
well, even if you dead set aren't, get along anyway, right? Because you can compete in the open alongside, right? So it is deliberately a tournament that anybody can go to. And, let's face it, there were, how many coaches were there at Greenstone Cup? Was it 40?
38 in the end.
38,
well,
yeah.
40 registered, but 38.
It's a cracking tournament that runs right alongside, that anybody can play in, and not only is it a fantastic event in its own right, but you get to watch along and watch the Ausbowl State Champs at the same time. Like, it's a win-win. So, do plan to be there. It'd be fantastic to see you there. I'm planning to make the Queensland team, but whether I make it or not, we will wait and see.
I was definitely way more nervous about being called up to the state team than actually participating in the Greenstone Cup as the Open. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you do play against the best of the best, and don't ever let that be the thing that says no, I can't go because I'm playing against the best of the best. Because there's only one way you get to be the best of the best, and that's play the best. You don't improve your game if you're playing, newbies all the time and so on. Play against those people that just put you to the sword, and go back and look at that game and go, what did I do wrong? Or maybe you didn't even do anything wrong. What did my opponent do to capitalize? And that's, if you take that mindset into dissecting each game, you actually become better for that. So the next time you compete, the next time you represent, you're at a different level. Like Wilt said, 2023, Queensland were cellar dwellers. And then we came back last year. I think we got fourth. Our biggest claim to fame
Fifth.
was we
We were fifth.
fifth, but we did beat those New South Wales coaches, so that's a feather in our cap. As it rightly should be, Queensland over New South Wales. Bit of a tongue in cheek there. I know James Russell Wills is listening to this. He's probably cursing me right now. We do love you, James. And James, I'm going to do everything I can to try and get these Tassie boys online. So I might need your help with some details of how they can do that if they can get a team together.
Just on what Millsy's saying, I just wanted to say, hey, I was listening to Greenstone Phil, whose real name is Chris, just to confuse people. He is the coach for Team England. He came on New Dice Please to say they've got a brand new initiative where they're going to get really experienced Blood Bowlers, really successful Blood Bowl coaches to play up and coming Blood Bowl coaches who are English. And there is going to be a feedback form, an evaluation form that you fill out at the end of every game as part of that coaching process that they're offering. If you're interested as a listener to have a look at that evaluation form, apparently after every Blood Bowl game, the idea is that you just fill it in and then you can look back at it and reflect on it later. It takes 2 minutes to complete. If you're interested in seeing that feedback form, let us know at Down Underworld Denizens and we'll get that for you. I reckon I can get my hands on that. I think that could be a really, really useful tool about how to improve your Blood Bowl game. And I'm personally interested in doing it for myself.
Absolutely. For self-reflection and for even just for remembering how each game went, so you can remember back to it later as a fun little exercise to go back through your history.
Greenstone Phil is actually a professional basketball coach. That's actually his job. And so it's actually something he's used professionally for his basketball players, and he's just basically adapted it for Blood Bowl.
Awesome.
It sounds awesome. Does it come with only 11 players printed on the first line, Babs?
Actually, G Millsy, who was the coach who played me recently who set up 12 High Elves?
Oh, let's not go there. I retract my statement.
Well, luckily for everyone involved, the new edition just puts them back in the reserves box instead of sending them off. So that's not as harsh of a drawback anymore.
True, and certain players are ineligible of being sent off, so you can't send off a star or the player with the ball. Hey, look, I'm going to move on from our news section to another piece of news. Our good friend and sponsor of Down Underworld Denizens, Tats Tabletop, have actually launched their website. So I've been chatting with Chris, and he wants your help. So please, if you can help out our sponsor, we'd love you to. He, in particular, wants you to go to his website in beta. It is still in testing. It's not really been officially launched yet. It is just www.tatstabletop.com.au, no spaces, TATS tabletop. And please jump on there and give him some feedback about the website. Please have a look at what's on there, what's not on there, what needs to be on there. Does it work well on mobile? Does it work well on tablet? Does it work well on laptop? He's keen for your feedback. So if you can let us know, we'll pass that feedback on. He's really keen to officially launch that website soon. And he's asked you, as our Down Underworld Denizens listener, to help him get that website up and running and be as useful as possible for us. Fine players of fantasy football board games.
Well, as many of you will know that Millsy, I'm the variant king here on Down Underworld Denizens. I love me a good variant. I love me a different play style of fantasy football games. And we have one of the best interviews we've ever done with a man called James Hewitt. Now, he's done multiple things, but the big ones you would have heard of Blood Bowl. He's worked officially with GW. Blitz Bowl, which was its own game. And also Dread Ball, which Millsy now has a copy of. I did purchase one. I haven't yet played a game. I'm halfway through the rules. So let's listen to James about how you go about creating these games and what are his favourites in that.
All right. Well, look, first of all, James, I'd just like to say thank you so much for honouring us by coming on the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure for all of us to be able to chat to you in person. I don't believe I've actually had the pleasure of doing so. So I just wanted to, first of all, just say thank you. For those of our listeners who don't know who James Hewitt is, I would go out on a limb here and say that potentially James is the games designer who has designed more sports-themed board games than anyone else ever. He has worked on, in no particular order, Dread Ball, Blood Bowl for Games Workshop, Myth and Goal, and Blitz Bowl, all as fantastical football board games. And that's only just touching the iceberg of the games that James Hewitt has worked on for companies such as Games Workshop, Mantic, and War Cradle Games. James, thank you for coming on the podcast.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for reaching out. Yeah, I think we've moved in similar circles for several years. We've never actually come in contact, so it was lovely to get an email from you. I think I feel like I've been typecast a little bit. You know, I've done so many sports games, and I'm not quite sure why. I do enjoy them though. There's something about the interaction between a tabletop war game type game where you've got a specific set of rules and a way of playing, and a sports game where you've got in a field where you've got a particular set of rules and a way of playing. They interact in a really nice way. There's a really cool Venn diagram there, and I'm happy to live in that little middle segment.
Excellent. Well, we have a set of standard questions that we ask our guest commentators, as we call it, on our podcast, Down Underworld Denizens. Millsy's going to kick us off, I believe.
Yeah, James. So, with that many games that you've been involved with, primarily we talk about Blood Bowl. So, how did you first get into Blood Bowl?
I've actually never played it. Oh no, wait, hang on. I originally got into Games Workshop stuff through Hero Quest, as a lot of people did who are of a similar age. But the first White Dwarf magazine I picked up, I think it was like issue 182 or something. It was when Death Zone came out originally. So it was the one that had the cover with the Death Zone cover on it. And I was immediately intrigued, but I didn't really play Blood Bowl till a few years later because I was the kind of kid, I was into the hobby, but I had one thing I was into and I wanted to put all my pocket money towards that, So it wasn't until I started working in Games Workshop retail back in the early noughties that I first played Blood Bowl. So I played through the whole the Fnatic era when the Living Rulebook was a big thing. I had a Pro Elf team, which I loved to bits until the box came over, opened my bag, and they got utterly crushed by various heavy rulebooks. But yeah, no, I played Blood Bowl pretty consistently from there, really. Used to run quite a few leagues for my friends. And of course, ended up working on it when I was at Games Workshop, which was a kind of a dream come true, really.
Excellent. I think the White Dwarf you were talking about was 176 from the top of my head.
176, earlier than I thought. Okay.
Well, if you want to one up each other, I've actually looked it up. It's number 174.
Oh, of course. 182
Okay,
was when they changed regen in 182 from 2+ to 4+. I remember that.
Okay, there you go. I'm glad this is the level we're at. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm not nervous at all. I know the game.
No, spot the level of nerd off the charts, I think is more the point.
Oh, completely. I have found my people, don't worry.
So you may have actually answered the second question already, but do you have a particular favorite Blood Bowl team?
Yeah, and it's not the one that I said. So the Pro Elves were like, the reason I got the Pro Elf team when they came out is that I've been a lifelong Orc player. I've always loved the Orcs in any incarnation, and so I always had an Orc team. I've always pushed. Some would say unwisely. Orc throwing teams. I think an Orc throwing team is a really fun way to play, and not like the level of throwing team that you see else, in other teams, but certainly people don't expect it. The casual gamers certainly don't expect you to start flipping the ball. And I think if you can, once you get a few nice level ups on your players, you can really have some fun things. So yeah, Orcs were my team for the longest time. I took the Pro Elves as kind of a challenge to myself to play a different way. I didn't quite go for I'll do a throwing Orc team, I'll do a punching Elf team. That wasn't what I did. I just went fairly vanilla. I'm only so masochistic. But yeah, I really love the Orcs. In fact, fun fact, in the Forge World Studio League, so when I was at Games Workshop most recently working on Blood Bowl, I had an Orc team in that called the Thunder Valley Greenskins, who, as every Blood Bowl developer has done throughout time, that team got put into the lore and the narrative of the game. And then the name got picked up for the Black Orc Plastic team when it came out, which that was quite a cool little moment. The colours are wrong; they're meant to be yellow and purple, but it's cool that they've been immortalised on a box.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that you've run a few leagues. You've been league commissioner. Have you played in Blood Bowl tournaments? And if you have, which is your preferred way of playing Blood Bowl? Is it league or is it tournament?
Yeah, I've done a few tournaments. Back when I was in retail, I used to work in Games Workshop in Reading in the south of the UK, southeast. And there was a club there called the Spiky Club, which used to do loads of really big tournaments. And we had quite a lot of Blood Bowl back in the day. So I played a few of those. But I've always been more of a league player. I think for me, I like to play Blood Bowl with drink in hand with some friends around a table. It's the nature of the game. I find is that it is for me best enjoyed with people where I know we're on the same page. We're going to enjoy it in the same way. And I find that with tournaments, generally, you don't know who you come up against. Although I will say, of all the games that I've been involved in, I think the Blood Bowl tournament scene is one of the friendliest. And one of the, you can't go into Blood Bowl and know you're going to win. Nuffle will strike you down for your arrogance. You will roll all the things you don't want to roll. And so I think that necessitates a certain loosey-goosey fun approach to the game. And you can see that in the player base. I love each and every one of them.
Absolutely. Now, has there been a particular favorite character, either as a star player or as a background character, that you've either been involved in developing, or been involved with playing?
Yes, there's a few. So when my time on Blood Bowl was an interesting one, because I came in when a lot of the work had been done on the box that came out. So a lot of what I was doing when I first started was working on the first supplement, which I believe we called Deathstone Season 1, I think, which had the league rules and that kind of thing in. And there were a few characters, but at that point, a lot of the work had kind of been done, so I didn't get much chance to come up with much that was new, because we were either repurposing things directly from the CRP or LRB6, whichever one it was we ended up using as the source. I'm assuming it was the CRP. It's been I got about 10 years, over 10 years. Wow. Yes. So I think the character that I had the most fun with, though, was probably Barrack Farblast. Not because really I did anything to the rules, but I wrote a little bit of narrative text. I've not been able to find it since. I don't know if it ended up going out somewhere, if it was in a book. But there was just a little piece about the number of fans who have met grisly ends when the Bullzooka is used to fire promotional chainmail shirts into the crowd. And that image, I just think that is the funniest image. And I love it. There's something very slapstick about it. Because, the t-shirt cannon, but it's chainmail. People are going to die.
So you've turned it into a chain shot, basically.
Exactly. You can hit a whole section of the crowd at once.
I love it.
It's efficient. That to me, that's the most Blood Bowl thing I've ever written.
That does embrace Blood Bowl completely. Now, you talked about you love playing Blood Bowl with a beer in hand. So the Down Underworld Denizens crew, we make it over to England. We go out for a pub meal on a Friday night with you. What's your go-to pub meal?
Oh, that's a tricky one. So we do a lot of pub meals. I mean, we've got a dog. We go for a walk through the countryside. I love a country pub. Go in, see what the offerings are. I like a good like a pie. I like a pie, but it's got to be a proper pie. Now I don't know over on that side of the world how things work with pies, but as far as I'm concerned, a lot of the time you go to a pub, you'll get like a ceramic dish with some stew in it and a little pastry lid, and they'll call that a pie. And I get very upset. I want pastry beneath the pie as well, please. I want a
Absolutely.
nice chunky meaty pie, pastry all round. Some potatoes on the side, But then also like a good pub fish and chips is really good. I think in fact last time I went to a pub, I had fish and chips and I had a great time. So just pub food, really. Just feed me, is all I'm saying.
Oh, well,
Absolutely.
I tell you what, if you ever make it over here, you'll fit right in because, yeah, that whatever that thing is without pastry on the bottom, it's not a pie. Here in Australia, a pie is pastry everywhere, and pub fish and chips is awesome as well.
I think they
I
actually
need to go
call it
there at some point.
I think they call it a pot pie here in Australia. The one you're talking about, where it's in a
Good.
ceramic
It
dish.
should have its own name. It should have a separate name entirely. There should be no confusion. When I order it, I have to ask now. Just tell me what's the pastry situation.
I mean, a shepherd's pie doesn't have pastry in it. It's just got the potato on top. So,
Well,
This
yeah,
is
that's
so okay. So shepherd's pie, fisherman's pie, which is like a fish shepherd's pie kind of arrangement. I will accept that those are called a pie, but like the ship has sailed. There's no pastry, there's potato. So would I like a shepherd's pie with potato at the bottom as well? Yeah, definitely. Some kind of potatoy lasagna affair. This is now we're just talking about pub food, right? This is the rest of the podcast.
we're now your local cuisine podcast.
Yeah, hard pivot.
It's too late now. Okay, but you did mention working in Games Workshop retail before you moved into the games studio. What kind of steps did you go through to actually make that transition?
Yeah, so I'd always wanted to design games. It was a thing. I mean, I look back, I will occasionally still find, doodled notes from when I was a teenager and even earlier when I was writing down extra rules for games or, designing new games from scratch. One of my earliest memories is making a board game based on the movie Gremlins,
Oh, excellent.
which I found the game years later, and it was terrible. What was I thinking? There were some horrible design choices in there. I was like 7, so I'll let myself off. But yeah, I'd always wanted to play games and design them. And I think what I love about the kind of games that we have, in this hobby, there is a hobbyist element because it's quite homemade to a degree. I mean, even now with the amount of bespoke components and everything else, there is still kind of you have to do a lot of work to get to the point of playing the game. You have to build the models, paint the models. Often, like if it's wargaming, you got to build the scenery or whatever else. And so, I think players are kind of implicitly encouraged to mess around with the rules a bit, and I've always enjoyed that about like hobby games, as I suppose you could call them. So for me, like when I was working in the shops, and I spent about a decade in retail, in various Games Workshop stores. That whole time, I was always, writing up special rules for scenarios for in-store gaming. I did loads of like campaigns. I did all sorts of stuff like that. I was kind of the go-to guy in the store for all that kind of thing. And so it was kind of a logical progression that I wanted to go and design games for Games Workshop up at the head office. And so eventually I applied. I got down to the last 2 out of some crazy number of applicants, and got pipped to the post. Didn't quite make it through, but it kind of really the whole process of interviewing for it and learning about the whole way they do things really made me want to do it. So I kept trying, and in the meantime, I ended up working as a community manager for Mantic Games because they were looking for someone to write a sports game, and someone I'd previously worked with was working with them and said, "Oh, James does a lot of game stuff, and he's not particularly happy in retail. Drop him a line." So I ended up doing like I pitched a game called Razordisc, which was like Ultimate Frisbee but with blades and dismemberment and death, and that kind of gradually morphed into working on Dreadball with Jake Thornton. And then when Dreadball came out, I answered a load of questions online, did all the kind of social media stuff. So Mantic asked me to come aboard and do that for them full time. And that eventually led to me seeing a job at Games Workshop for a designer. So I went across there, interviewed, and this time got the job. So it's not like there's not like a clear path. It's kind of career pinball, really. But yeah, I think there was lots of little things that all ended up to eventually coming across as someone who knows what he's doing enough to get that job.
Excellent.
Yeah, fantastic. Speaking of going to Mantic, so one of the games you helped develop there was Dreadball, which I've just recently picked up. I got off eBay the other day because we have mentioned that we talk about it, but we haven't.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to play my first game. But your time working with Mantic and developing Dreadball, I'm guessing would be a lot more hands-on than your initial tweaking of things, bits and pieces here. So what was it like going from 90% of the rules done for you and tweaking to actually designing rules for Dreadball?
It was interesting. So I ended up I was like, I think supporting developer was what I was credited as on Dreadball in the end. So it was me and I say Jake Thornton, who some people may know him. He used to be an editor of White Dwarf. He's done other game design things over the years, but so I'd spoken to Ronnie at Mantic about this Razordisk game that I'd done, which is like a hex grid based ultimate frisbee kind of thing. And he was like, "We like it, but you've not designed a game from scratch before. We want someone who knows what they're doing. So, we're going to bring Jake in, and you can work together on this." And so I was going over to Jake's house once a week, and we would like bash out ideas and try things out. And the game that I'd made, we didn't really develop from there. I mean, Jake didn't. He wanted to do his own thing. A lot of the ideas that I put in Razordisk ended up coming across. The dice mechanic was quite similar. The hex grid was not a million miles different. And so I was kind of, I'd designed a game, and I was using elements of that to help develop Dreadball. And yeah, the process was really interesting because, I mean, looking back now with the benefit of years of experience, I know that I'd made loads of rookie mistakes. When people design their first game, they always they approach it from the wrong end. Like they start with the rulebook, and so you start writing a rulebook, and you lay it out, and you use language that is what you'd expect to see in a rulebook, which is very much a teaching document. So the little rules pamphlet I'd written was teaching the game, which is now, I know we never write rules documentation till the very end of the process, because what you want to focus on first is the actual gameplay, the moment to moment play of the game, and develop that. So yeah, it was a lot of very quick lessons, I think, for me. And then once Dreadball, like the core engine was done, I was kind of involved in the core engine in the first 4 teams, and then Jake handled the rest of the game solo from that point. And it was interesting then kind of watching the game I'd worked on being developed separately from me. And again, that's the thing that I've had to get used to over the years. To the point where now it's very rare for me to actually work on a game after I've done the initial design. But yeah, then I got a chance to come back for the second edition. I got when Mantic did a Dreadball, I think season 2 they called it. I came and did some rules review, tightening up on things. It was after I'd left Games Workshop, and I was freelance, so I was able to give some nuggets of wisdom and pull it all together. So yeah, it's a game that's very, very dear to me. It's got a very special place in my heart. I still quite enjoy playing it.
Excellent. Yeah. I was going to ask. So that sounds to me like the order went that you worked on Dreadball, then that's first edition, then you went over to Games Workshop, and then you came back to work on second edition of Dreadball. Is that the right time frame?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, okay. And then, a bit later, or fairly recently, you've worked on Myth and Goal, and that was a project with
Blacklist Games.
Blacklist Games, thank you, yeah. And that project unfortunately never saw the light of day. Is that's correct, isn't it?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you feel about the fact that you've put all this effort into this project? Obviously, you did your work. Yeah,
Mm.
how do you feel about the fact you've got this game system that obviously many people were very keen to see eventuate, and
Yeah.
unfortunately the project never proceeded?
Obviously, so on the surface, yeah, it sucks. It's always a shame when you work on something it doesn't end up being released. But I mean, the truth is that when you do the kind of work that I do, where I've been a freelancer for several years and I've then worked for other large studios. I'm now working for War Cradle. Like, it's quite common to get a project to a fairly developed degree and then have it either change significantly or get shelved. There's two or three games that will develop like way beyond the point of Myth and Gold I've worked on that have yet to see the light of day. But it's yeah, it never you get used to it, but it does suck, especially when something like Myth and Goal, where it was so publicized. Like the other games I've worked on like that are very much behind closed doors. But of course, we had a Kickstarter, um, and it got to a certain point, and I think they ended up cancelling the Kickstarter towards the end because it wasn't making as much money as they were hoping it would. Now, it's been a few years now, and um, I had nothing but admiration and respect for Adam Brady, who were over there, who were the guys who did a lot of the development work with me. They were kind of project managing it, and they've worked on some amazing games over the years. But I think they found it quite hard with some of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes at Blacklist. A lot of things were out of their hands, and so I mean, the game had a lot of stuff in it that had I been designing it completely from scratch, I wouldn't have necessarily done. I mean, the idea of a solo mode for a sports game that's a huge challenge because there are so many considerations that an AI opponent needs to think about. And so I think if we'd been able to get rid of that element, it would have made the game a lot more straightforward. But I still think there was something really interesting there, and I'd love to maybe revisit the idea at some point in the future. I think contractually, actually, it belongs to me now. So we had a line in the contract about if it wasn't published within a certain amount of time, it reverts to the designer. So, yeah, if I ever get time one day, maybe we can do something with it. But yeah, it was a fun game. Though. It was a fun idea.
And then tell us a little bit about how you came to work on Blitzbowl as a project, and yeah, how did you feel about coming back to Games Workshop for that project?
So Blitzbowl was really fun. Probably one of the most enjoyable games that I'd worked on in this kind of genre because the way it came about was as I was leaving Games Workshops, this would have been 2017. I was approached by a guy called Tom who worked in one of the game dev departments who was saying that they were doing this range of like gateway games for some of the big box stores in the US and elsewhere, and they wanted to do like a Blood Bowl light kind of thing. And he said, would I be interested in working on it as a freelance gig? My first freelance gig outside of GW because they didn't have anyone internally who had the familiarity with the game and the schedule time basically to do it. And so for me, considering I'd gone into the specialist design team knowing I was going to be working on Blood Bowl, and I had this huge set of ideas of like, well, if I'm redoing Blood Bowl, here's all the stuff we learned from Dread Bowl. Here's loads of stuff that I think are like opportunities to bring the game to a more modern audience because I'm sure it's no secret to anyone that Blood Bowl for a new player, especially one who's used to fairly modern games, can be very punishing. It's a very deep game once you get past that, but the climb to the top is very tricky. So I had all these ideas. Then, of course, I joined the team and was told, oh, no, actually, we've done 90% of it. We're keeping it as it is. So Blitzbowl was basically me using all of those ideas that I'd saved up. And the original plan was it was going to be like a one and done, sent out into the stores, and no support, no follow up. That would be it. But I think it really sort of picks up steam. It had a very excitable community who were playing a lot of games, and so now, yeah, it's had quite a few re-releases, right? It's really cool.
Yeah, so I know I picked up Blitzbowl as the moment I saw it. It was released through Barnes and Noble, so we don't have them here in Australia, and I had to get mine sent from overseas.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got it straight away and read it and looked at it and so on. Now, one of the biggest differences between Blood Bowl and Blitz Bowl, you probably know what I'm going to ask, and anyone that's ever played Blitz Bowl and Blood Bowl is going to know. In Blitz Bowl, the what we would know as the dodge pow, in Blitz Bowl, it's called the crunch. Could you explain to our listeners why you chose that as the more powerful image on the dice?
Yeah, I just enjoy controversy. It's not that at all. What it was a real, like, this was a nail biter. I think some people would look at it and think, oh, that was a mistake or something. No, it was very deliberate, and it was a result of a lot of back and forth, because what I was finding when I was demoing the game, so I was getting people who didn't play Blood Bowl to play it, because the whole purpose of this as a product was to entice people that might not know Games Workshop. They might know like NFL or whatever. They see it on the shelf in a shop and go, "Oh, I'll give that a go." So when I was developing it, I was getting people who didn't know Blood Bowl to play the game, and everyone found it really weird that the more complex symbol, the one with the exclamation mark in the middle of it, the fact that was worse really confused them, and it was a real stumbling block when they were learning the game. And so I did like literally did a survey. I asked GW to put it around the development office there. Um, which of these two symbols is more? Which one should have the higher impact? Which one should be the bigger version? And almost unanimously, it was decided that the one with the exclamation mark, that's more emphatic, right? And so we did that, knowing, of course, that when people come to then move from Blitz Bowl to Blood Bowl, they're gonna, they're gonna find that kind of confusing. But we thought it's probably better that we at least make it easier for people to get into the game, and that was really handy.
Yeah, cool. Now you also mentioned that there was other box sets coming out. They're up to 4 now. How do you feel about it's moved on past you now into more and more versions?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of part of the territory. It's a thing that happens a lot with games that I've worked on. But actually, this one in particular, I mean, the second edition, I had some questions about, because it felt like the person who had designed it or worked on it didn't necessarily have the best handle on the idea behind the game. The whole point was that Blitz Bowl is streamlined and uses as few rules as possible to reach the goal, and it added a lot of extraneous stuff in, which I think undermines some of that. And sure enough, I think the community stopped playing with like extra balls and whatever else, or the team specific balls and the advancement system they had. But I know for a fact that the later editions had some consultancy from people in the community, and looking at everything in the Ultimate Edition, which is the third one, I believe. Every decision in that, I'm like, yep, completely. Like bringing the number of points for touchdowns down, all of that. Or no, sorry, increasing points for touchdowns, I think it was. All of it was like, yeah, that is totally the kind of stuff that I would expect to see in the game. So it's great, and I'm looking forward to actually seeing the fourth. I don't think it's out yet, right?
There's 2 versions of the Ultimate Edition, so yeah, they're all 4 are out. Yeah,
right. Okay, yeah. So I've just got the first one, so I have to get my hands on the other one at some point.
Cool. We've gone around the grounds a bit, and you've told us about Dreadball. You've told us about your time working on Blood Bowl. You've told us about the sad moment of myth and goal never coming to the light of day. You've told us about working on Blitz Bowl. Out of all of those, and you feel free to mention something I didn't. Do you have a favourite, and if so, why?
Oh, tricky. It's like saying, which of your children is the favourite?
Yeah.
I think they all do different things. So I really like Blitz Bowl for how quick it is, how pure it is. I think we've all been stuck in games where you don't want to concede, because that would be poor sportsmanship, but you're very aware from like round 3 that you've lost, and you're still playing for a couple more hours. And I like the fact that Blitz Bowl doesn't do that. There's a thing in Blitz Bowl which, in a way, was borrowed from Dreadball, which is the sudden death victory. Like if you ever lap your opponent by 10 points in Blitz Bowl, the game ends. And I think that's really cool. But also the fact that it delivers I'd say maybe 70% of the feeling of Blood Bowl, but in a much reduced timescale. You can play a game of Blitz Bowl in half an hour if you know what you're doing. So I think that works for me. But also, then I mean, Dreadball. I really like how Dreadball. It's very quick. Like the fact that one of the big things in Dreadball that I really like is when someone scores, there's no reset. The ball gets fired out and play continues. So you have to be very conscious of the fact you can't neglect your backfield, because as soon as you score, the ball comes flying out down the pitch, and if you're not careful, your opponent's going to score back on you very quickly. So yeah, I like the speed of that. But Blood Bowl, I love the story. I love emergent narrative in games. Stories that get told as a result of dice rolls and things that happen in a game. And Blood Bowl is just an absolute stone cold classic for that. It's a game that you will dissect your top moments of. Blood Bowl is a game that I will spectate. I don't like watching mini games being played, but Blood Bowl is one of them because it is genuinely entertaining.
For the spectacle, if not the actual tactical gameplay sometimes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just because stuff happens, and whether or not you expected it or planned it, it's usually very entertaining for at least one person, if not both.
Yeah. Many a time I've been, I've called people over, or someone's called you over. You're at a games day, whether it's a league or a tournament, and someone will say, "Come and watch this. This is what I'm going to do. I have to 5+ into here and 6+ into there," and it's that. And like you said, you get people coming over to spectate that. Half of them wanting you to fail, and half of them wanting you to pass, and it's just the community around the board at the time. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a game that makes stories. Absolutely.
I actually did that in a tournament in Townsville last year. I had my Orc team. I made an 11 square pass with my Orc thrower to a big un to try and catch the ball and run away to tie the game up at 1-1.
Yes. Because if you go for it, it's probably going to fail. But if it works, just think of how cool that would be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's the only way to play.
Wilkes, you also did that at the Bundy Rubble. So I have a beach bowl tournament, and Wilkes was 2 squares from the end zone with the gutter runner with the ball in hand. All he had to do was step in 2 squares, and yet he called people over to say, "Watch this," and he handed off the ball to his rat ogre so his rat ogre could score.
That's teamwork right there, I
wasn't going to mention that one. I didn't want to embarrass you any more than I normally have to.
Hey, speaking of Millsy and beach ball, Millsy has also worked on a variant. You mentioned that part of the reason why Blitz Bowl exists is it's kind of a bridging game from somebody who has no experience of Warhammer to being able to play Blood Bowl. Millsy's worked on a variant that's kind of the opposite way around. It's kind of the way we can get Blood Bowlers to play Blitz Bowl. Millsy, do you want to talk a little bit about Arena Bowl?
Tell me.
Yeah, definitely. This is my baby. I've designed and done a couple of things, but it all came from Babs a couple of years ago. I was having a housewarming party and said, "Oh, look, I'm going to have this little mini sevens housewarming event where everything's going to be different. What versions have we got?" And we both own Blitz Bowl, and he said, "Oh, Millsy, could you do something with Blitz Bowl so we could play sevens on it?" So I jumped on and so I went from using the standard pitch and so on, and the standard rules for drafting a sevens team. I used elements of the Blitz Bowl. Now in Blitz Bowl you can only have 3 activations, and I changed it up to 4. So you can only have 4 players activate per turn, but next turn you can't have the same 4. Obviously if you've only got 7 on there, one of them doesn't do something. And using, like you just talked about a moment ago, with the once you score, the scoring player celebrates, goes immediately to the dugout, and a new ball pops out of the trapdoor. So there is no reset time, and it plays for the 16 turns. And it's a fantastic game. And like you said with Dreadball, it's quick. There is no downtime, and if you're getting flogged, it's over really quickly as well.
That's fantastic.
Which is always and we've had quite a number of people play it, or seen and heard about it. And a couple of tournaments here when you get prize support from your friend at the local gaming store, and they've given us a copy of Blitz Bowl. So I've printed out my Arena Bowl, we called it, because it's played in an arena. Printed out my Arena Bowl rules and put it there with it, and people were taking that above other grander prizes there just because they wanted to have a go at this. So
That's so
um,
cool. Oh, that's going to be such a gratifying feeling as well. I love that.
We'd love to send you a copy, James. It's just a PDF, so we'll email it to you.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Send it over. I'd love to
it's
see it.
basically your game using the Blood Bowl rules, mechanic.
Yeah.
So basically, Blood Bowl mechanics, but playing Blitz Bowl. That's basically what the game is. And I think Millsy's done an outstanding job of it. Yeah.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and I'd be interested in feedback if you could provide that too. That would be amazing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'll get the red pen out,
Yeah, maybe I'm going down the same route as you and getting into game design. So, not that I think I'm going to be that far ahead, but I do love the version of it. And yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what your thoughts on what I did to your game.
Absolutely. The way that I always like to work when it comes to design is I think it's all about collaboration. I think it's the more you can kind of get your game in front of other people and get their opinion on it, and get their input, the better it'll be. So I'm never precious with my games. Like when I've worked on something, I love it when people develop it and do weird things with it. There was a game I did for Games Workshop called Gore Chosen, which is like a up to four player arena combat game with like corn fighters swinging big axes. And it was very loud, very silly. And someone online did a total conversion and used the same rules for a game about mechs fighting big like kaiju monsters in a cityscape. And I was like, that's just the coolest thing ever. Yeah, like a total. They'd read on all the components, just use the core rules, and I was like, that's insane. That's so cool. So yeah, no, please do send it over. I'd love to have a look.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, we were talking a little bit about, tell us about your favorite child, and you can't choose because they're all your children. But what about a character in one of those games that's not Blood Bowl? Like you mentioned, you love Barrack Farblast because of the the fan casualties. But what about one of your other games? Is there a character that you developed in one of those other games that you kind of fell in love with as a result of their backstory or who they stand for in the game?
Yeah, there's actually, so in a way, there's like a meta character. There's a character that's appeared in most games I've worked on. Certainly, I think every sports game has included a version of this character. And again, like, the way that things get based on stuff in real life. I've got a friend in real life, Greg, who he's a big rugby player, or hasn't done for a few years. But when we were first hanging out, he was a big rugby player, and probably broken more bones than anyone I know. Complete. That was his life, and so most of the time he'd have a cast or something, something in a sling or something. And so, of course, when it came to work on Dreadball, I had to put a character in based on Greg. So there was a character I think called Dead Man Davitz. So his surname's Davies, so Davitz. He was like a cyborg from being, broken too many times in games. And then it kind of became a running joke. So I've managed to drop a Greg reference in every sports game I've worked on. And every time it's either an undead character or a cyborg or someone who, I think one of them was immune to pain. And I thought that's the final, there's got to be a version who just can't be hurt at all. So yeah, look, if you dig through my games, you will find at least one Greg reference whenever you look there.
Like an Easter egg. I love it.
An Easter Greg, if you will.
Easter Greg.
Puns are coming out tonight. God.
Yeah.
So James, tell us a little bit about your current work. Like for our listeners, quite a few of our listeners play games other than fantasy football board games. You tell us a little bit about your work with War Cradle Games. Is there anything that maybe our listeners will be interested to hear about?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working with War Cradle for about 18 months now. I'm one of the lead developers there. So I run a team of game devs. There are 11 of us in total in the room. So I've got a team of 3, and my other lead developer, Robin, who used to work at Games Workshop. Funnily enough, he was the guy who, when I first went for the game dev job at GW, and it came down to 2 people, he was the other one. He's the one that got the job. So he's now come to work for us, and it's like we're shadowing each other through our careers. But yeah, our job is to lead the teams of developers and make sure that everyone's, designing games in the best way possible. And it's really fun. I mean, we've grown. We started out with I was the only lead. We had 3 developers underneath me, and now it's like 11 people in total. So what's really interesting with War Cradle is we have a lot of games and projects that go at once. We've got Dystopian Wars, which is a naval combat, like alternate history game. We've got Armored Clash, which is 10 mil scale land battles in the same setting. We're currently working on a game called Wild West Exodus, which I think this is going to appeal to a lot of old school gamers. It's a again, same setting, so late 1800s, but it's the old west. So you've got cowboys and everything else, but it's a skirmish game, and you grow your posse of individuals. They develop new skills, whatever else, and some of the stuff we're putting in it's really cool. I'm not the lead designer on it. I'm kind of mentoring the lead designer through making it, and he's come up with all these amazing ideas for how to represent kind of rivalries and ongoing narrative between games, which I think that will certainly appeal to Blood Bowl players. That idea of you build up your story as you go. But yeah, no, I think so. War Cradles, we're doing some really interesting things, and check out the War Cradle social media stuff, because there's some big announcements coming up in the near future, which I think people will be quite keen to look at. No sports games yet, though.
All right, James, is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners or clarify on what we've covered so far?
No, I think the main thing I'd like to say is just I always use the Blood Bowl community as an example of a fan base that really comes together and does cool things. The fact that when the game was not supported for several years by Games Workshop, there was still regularly, I think, like 500 to 700 people showing up for certain tournaments. And there was one in Italy that happened, had like 700 players. There is this real sense of community and togetherness, and I love that. It's one of the games where if I ever meet fans, like from a convention or something, and people talking that they're Blood Bowl fans, I know it's going to be a good time. I know that they're going to be good people, and they're going to have the right attitude towards gaming, which, as I said earlier, is you've got to have fun with it, right? Of course, there are standouts, there are tantrums, there are all these things, but overall, I've always really enjoyed interacting with the Blood Bowl community. So I just want to say thank you, really, to everyone who's part of it, and keep it going, because a game is only as good as the people playing it.
Well, we'd like to thank you for being a part of keeping the game going in its current iterations as well. But before we wrap up, there's one last thing we need you to do, and that's for you to give us your version of saying, "That's brilliant."
Just the words, "That's brilliant."
In any kind of style or enthusiasm that you want to give us.
Let me see what I'm going to do. Let's think. Okay, that is brilliant.
Nice.
Ooh,
that's
very
also unique.
sophisticated.
So very nice.
I don't know if you can hear it, but I was pointing for emphasis during that. You could you can picture that in your heads.
Look, I've got one final question, and I've waited until after the record part is done. So feel free to not answer it if you don't want to, whether you're under any legal obligations. But when you were working with GW, was there ever any talk of bringing back Slann? Because I'm like the world's biggest Slann fanatic. So was there ever any talk about they would or they definitely wouldn't? And feel free to say no, you're not allowed to talk about it.
No, so let me get this right. So as I understand it, and I'm going off old memories here, Slann in Blood Bowl, they obviously they were part of the expanded teams that came out in the LRB era. I don't think they ever had any official support, did they? Or were there miniatures made at any point?
No, there were no miniatures made. Yeah, so the
No,
three
it's them,
expansion
it's like
teams.
them, Bretonians and Khorne, was that the three? Yeah. So when I was there, what was discussed as a kind of a maybe one day kind of thing was not doing Slann, but doing another team that if you kind of squinted your eyes a little bit and turned your head to the side, you go, oh, hang on, that's Slann, isn't it? But calling them something different, because there was yeah, I don't. I think they wanted to make sure that because GW these days is very clear on its IP being consistent. Slann are big fat toads that sit on floating chairs and apparently command armies of ghosts these days. So they didn't want to cross over with that. So they were talking like, what if is there something else we could put in that would be like Slann that would have the same, you could probably use your Slann models. It would be the same roster, but put a different theme on top. And that was kind of where it was left when I was there. The fact they haven't done that since means they probably haven't had any good ideas yet. But you never know.
Tell them to call me. I've got 100.
I think that's probably a lead, suspicion anyway. Is exactly what you've articulated. Yeah. They probably won't bring them back in the way they were written for second edition Blood Bowl, just because, as you say, the lore has moved on from there. But we'd love to see the mechanic of the Slann team somehow.
Oh, absolutely. Because they're a wacky fun team, and I think they're a thing that's missing. That kind of that ultra agile thing, I'd love to see that come back in.
Well, it's definitely an unexplored design space of agile, but in a different way.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's the whole thing. I've not played I want to say most recent, the one that came out after the 2016 edition, sorry, which where they brought in with the throw stat being its own thing. Is that right? Is it the throw stat?
That's right.
Something else?
Yep. Yeah, I think officially it's called
I've not played that.
second season edition.
Yeah,
but nobody calls it that. Everybody just remembers COVID, so it's like, it's 2020.
Yeah, there you go. Well, when we did 2016, the reason we didn't call it like an edition name, it was a 2016 edition, was because how the hell do you name it? Because you had first, second, third, 3.5, LRB 1 to 6, I think it was, CRP, and then what do we call it now? So 2016 was the answer. And then now we've got season 2. Okay, cool. Or second season.
We're up to season 3.
I've not played that.
Yeah.
Is it now season 3? Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just came out in November.
What's the reception been to the whole thing with the throw stat? Has that been a good decision, do we think?
I like it. And I think it helps develop better position variation between elves, because if an elf's 2+ agility and everyone's as good as each other, why would you bother taking a thrower in the first place? Now there's an actual reason to. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, I think it opens things up in an interesting way. There's a thing that we've looked at with Dystopian Wars at War Cradle. It's a game that's been around for a long time. It's a very similar kind of thing to Blood Bowl. It's a very steep learning curve to get into the game, and we've kind of tried to fix that with the new edition. But there's a lot of things where loads of stuff has this special rule because the stats don't cover this particular thing. So let's actually make a stat which covers that thing. And I feel like the throw stat is a similar kind of decision, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's a tightrope they're walking. I mean, I'm no games designer, but it's one of those trade-offs. What level of granularity do you give to the game? Trading off against the simplicity. It's just one of those compromise. Where do you draw the line? Where do you go? There is a little bit of rules creep that's gone on in the current two editions of the game, but most of us are fairly experienced gamers at this point, so we don't have none of us have an issue with it. It's more potential concern for a theoretical person new to the game, and that's I think where Blitz Bowl was brilliant. It was just so simple, just so quick and easy to pick up.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, I think it did the job. What's interesting, of course, is it's the fact that Blitz Bowl was intentionally very simple, and then most people play it who are Blood Bowl players and go, actually, I want to put these things back in. But because it's that simple core rule set, you can put a lot of that granularity back in without it kind of bogging down too much. Which, hopefully they'll carry on doing things with it. I'd like to see more Blitz Bowl stuff in future. I'd like to actually get my hands on copies of the most recent edition. Though, to be fair, I have to buy every copy myself. Because that's not how you don't get a copy for free, unfortunately. And it's very odd when it's not even sold in the same country you're in.
Yeah, but I think they did the right thing with Blitz Bowl. I know I started listening to a Blood Bowl podcast called The Crush, and they were doing, like you just said, adding these bits and pieces in and doing this, and I think they were the one that come up with the touchdowns being worth different points and so on. And then they kind of went quiet for a while, and it came back, and they said, "Oh yes, we've actually, we've been under NDAs because we've been developing this." So, Games Workshop, in that sense, they did the right thing. They reached out to the community members that know the game, that love the game, and seen it improve in leaps and bounds since the first. Not that there was anything wrong with
Yeah.
it, but
Well, no, but I think anything, I mean, the amount of testing that it had during initial development was certainly, it was fairly restricted because I had a smaller number of people because I was freelance that I could access. So, yeah, anything where that first edition definitely had some gaping holes in the rules, and they did a great job of fixing it and rebalancing some things. So, I mean, yeah, that was it because they put together like a fan version of the rules with their own kind of league progression and things. And I think that is what got the attention of GW and got them to do some work on it, which, yeah, I'd love to see more of that kind
I
of
was just going to say, James, it's been absolutely fantastic. It's been brilliant speaking to you, getting in your mind as a games creator, but not just a creator. You love the game and you play the games as well. So, on behalf of Down Underworld Denizens, we'd really like to thank you for this interview.
Yes, indeed.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. It's been lovely.
Yes, and we will send you Arena Bowl.
Yeah, please do. I'll send it back covered in scribbles and notes and things.
Oh, I would love
That'll
that.
be great to see.
You have no idea how much I'm fanboying and blushing over here when you said you loved it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll happily do that for you. I can't say when, but I'll definitely give it a look.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't afford to pay you for that game's design work.
It's all right. No, it's fine. You can have this one pro bono. That's okay.
All right, mate. Thanks very much. Happy for you to, just
Thank you
hit the
so
leave
much.
button. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks so
I'll
much for
catch up
coming
with
on.
you later on.
How friggin' good was that? That
loved
was
it?
an awesome interview. And we can use the tagline that Slann are in GW's eyes. They're coming back some way.
Well, they haven't said no to the mechanic, they've just said no to the frog.
Alrighty, now let's finish off our episode with some New Year's resolutions. So I think we need to go back and recap, what the goals we set ourselves last year. Did we achieve them? And what are we going to do for next year? Who wants to kick us off?
Yeah. Okay. So I had 4 goals for my New Year's resolutions in 2025. I'm going to go one at a time. What my goal was, whether I achieved it, and what I'm doing equivalent in 2026. So had 4 goals, going to have 4 goals again. So first goal was to attend both an interstate and an international tournament. I can say I have achieved that goal. I went to Eucalyptus Bowl this year. That was my interstate tournament.
Last year.
Yes, last year. Yep, I achieved it. And I attended an international tournament by going to Ausbowl State Champs and representing Queensland. So, managed to achieve that goal. So this year, my equivalent goal is to try to qualify for the Death Rollers again. That is a qualification process throughout 2026. And I am going to give that a red hot crack. I unfortunately missed a ticket to the Brisbane City Bash. I have now decided I am keen to get to that. I'm going to get to as many of the 7 qualification tournaments as I can get to. I don't think I'm going to make it up to Cairns for Fumble in the Jungle, but I'm going to try and get to all the others. If you have a ticket to Brisbane City Bash that you can't use, then let me know, because I'm going to try and get there. So I'm going to pull out all the stops. I've made a number of significant decisions to basically put that as a very high priority in my Blood Bowl hobby in 2026, to the point where I've actually stepped back as league commissioner, chief commissioner for Gerbil. So
Long live Millsy, Chief Commissioner.
As a new overlord, I command you to do all as I say.
Which is just what you're doing anyway, so keep going.
Exactly.
So am I dead then? If we, what is it? The chief commissioner is dead. Long live the chief commissioner. Isn't that how it goes?
If I say it, it shall be so.
Well done, Millsy. Thanks for stepping up. Really appreciate it, mate. Hey, second one. My second goal was a year of stunty. So there was an exception clause in there that I was allowed to take vampires if our Ausbowl State Champs captain told us to, which he did, and so I did. And I want to say I've again achieved that goal. I had my year of stunty, and I now have a above 150 coach rank on the NAF for ogres, which I already had before 2025, halflings above 150, goblins above 150, and gnomes above 150. So pretty happy with that.
What about snotlings?
Yeah, well, good thing Blood Bowl 25 came along. Hey, that job's just gotten a lot easier.
So work in progress.
Third goal, I was much too audacious. By the time I'd finished my New Year's resolution last year, I had effectively committed myself to finishing off painting my goblin team, finishing off my painting my halfling Cutimal team, painting my gnomes, painting the corn, and of course we painted together the Down Under Wood Denizens. So I effectively painted 5 teams last year. I didn't quite make this goal. My corn team not quite finished. I'm about 65% complete. So my corn didn't quite get there. Very happy with how my gnomes went. This year, I am committing to paint a team. And this time, I'm committing to paint the entire set of miniatures that goes with that team to not have leftovers, because as Millsy will vouch and Wilts will vouch, because I've been racing through all these teams, there's a whole bunch of leftovers sitting on my painting table that got left behind in my rush. So I want to paint an entire team of miniatures to play. And I think it's going to be old school second edition Chaos Renegades. I think that's not part of my New Year's resolution, but my New Year's resolution is to paint a team. But I want to go full old school Chaos Renegades, I think. My last goal was which was Blood Bowl adjacent, was to get my weight under 100 kilos. And I want to say I failed. Sadly,
Well, you did achieve it, and then you failed again.
yes, I failed. Yeah, I succeeded, and then I went to New Zealand, and Christmas came along, and yeah, all the festive food didn't help. I'm back on track, back on schedule to keep lowering my weight, but I did fail on that goal, so I want to say I didn't achieve it. I also, just on that goal, I just want to give a massive shout out to somebody, right? There is somebody in our Blood Bowl community who had the worst 2025 out of anybody I know. This person I'm talking about is Jason Webster. What is Jason Webster's New Year's resolution? To get fit and get to the gym. And he started with that goal. Like, far out, man. Hats off. To commit to getting fit and getting back into shape and using 2025 as a launch pad for some good. Man, hats off. Awesome work, mate. Jason, we're right behind you. We love you, man. We love your Blood Bowl. We love playing you. And we just want to say commendations for that New Year's resolution goal. And with that, I'm done. I'm handing over to somebody else for their New Year's resolutions.
Just quickly, big shout out to Jason. I'm sorry you weren't a hugger before, but you definitely are now, because you can't get away from me, buddy. I'm coming back.
So am I. Townsville have a qualification tournament to get to. Woot woot.
Okay. Well, I want to jump on that Jason Webster one as well. Like Bab said, for the year he's had, many people would just go, look at where I am at. Look at I'm down as far as I can go, and a lot of people would wallow in that. And Jason's not one to do that. He's stepping up and going, no, I can rebuild from here. I can go from there, and reiterating what Bab said, and this is for anybody that's got some New Year's resolutions around the world or whatever it is. You don't have to do this alone, mate. There are so many people that, at the drop of a hat will do whatever they can to help you reach those goals. So, personally, myself and anyone here at Down on the World Desert, or anyone that's been in the Queensland seed and spoken to Jason, done anything with him would do anything for him. So, good on you, mate. We're behind you 100%. All righty, getting on to my goals. I actually had 5. I didn't achieve all of them, and I kind of did in a certain way. So I'm going to work backwards. My 5th one was just a bit of a cheeky one. Get a shout out on a podcast. So I did achieve that one by several times. I actually appeared on a few other podcasts as well that we've had interviews with. So that was my little cheeky one. My number 4 goal was, I mentioned that I had out of the 29 teams at the time, I owned 51 painted teams with many more in plastic and metal. But I didn't own all teams. So I can actually say I do own all teams now. I have got the High Elves. I got them painted. I haven't painted my Tomb Kings or Bretonians yet, but I do own all 31 teams now. So I'm pretty happy with that. My number 3 goal was to do a one-turn touchdown via pushing a player, getting those chain pushes. And this was one I was really scared of because once I set myself the goal, I went and watched some YouTube clips. I got the pitch out on the board. I rolled dice. I pushed. I moved, and I tried it from different setups and stuff until I think, okay, I can do this. And whilst I've achieved it in a regular matches with other people, my goal was to do it in a tournament. And every tournament I went to where I was able to have that effect, I did all the chain pushes, got them all there, and I would fail the pass to the catcher, or I would set it up and then get a double powers and just knock the person down, so I couldn't do the next chain push. So many factors didn't allow that to happen, but I did manage to get it in a kind of a cheeky way at the Bundy Rumble on a beach bowl pitch with my Slann. I had to have one less push, but I did get the push there, so I'm ticking that off and saying I did it.
Just as a quick interruption there, sorry, Billsy. The real problem is you didn't take Skaven. They're the easiest to do it with.
Yes.
And
Oh, look, I didn't want to do it on easy mode, but you did it several times. How many times did you do one turn as Wilts?
not nowhere near as many times as Tony.
Tony, Snow
Nowhere near
Crash,
as many
yeah.
times as Snow Crash did. He was doing it almost every single time he received a kickoff. I think I only did it 7 times for the whole weekend.
Yeah, it was 7 times is still good, mind you.
Yeah, but that's
Speaking of
including a double
7,
power against Babs, where I should have had one.
yeah, it happens. The best laid plans.
Sorry to stop you scoring a one-turn touchdown. Oh, wait, that was my goal.
Yeah, speaking of sevens, one of my goals was I wanted to win the 7 series or podium. Now I was in contention for the win. Wilkes rightly took that off me. He played amazingly at the Bundy Rumble. And whilst you might say, well, Millsy, you didn't play all the games, Wilkes was on fire. I don't think I was catching him anyway. I'm sure that he would have overtaken me for that. So I'm still happy to have come second in that. So that achieved my goal of getting a podium in the 7 series. And then my very first goal, my number 1 goal, was to podium in an 11s tournament, just to get first, second, or third. Now, whilst I didn't get that, I actually got something for myself, which was far better, which was my 11th place out of 148 or so at Eucalyptus Bowl. That was Australia's major, the largest tournament I'd ever been in. And to get 11th place in that and to be the highest ranked human coach, in my mind, it far outweighed the getting a first, second, or third in an 11th tournament. However, to be technical, and that's the best kind of correct, is technically correct, I didn't actually achieve that goal. So it's back on for 2026.
Is that a saying of Down Underworld Denizens now?
Frequently alluded to.
Yes.
I don't think we coined it. I think it's from The Simpsons.
Futurama.
Okay.
Yes. All righty, Wilts. What were your resolutions?
Well, I kind of cheaped out last year, and I decided I'm not going to
Yeah,
have
you
any
did.
resolutions. I'm going to just try and not put pressure on myself and try and not feel guilty about things. And I do have to admit, I completely failed on both counts. I did put pressure on
I was going to
myself,
say,
and I
yes, you
did
did.
completely feel guilty about things. So I completely failed on every front, in every aspect in that regard for the year. What I did achieve though for 2025 was I made it to every single sevens tournament, every single 11s tournament on the Queensland tournament series, and I did manage to place third in the tournament series itself. So that was a quite an
Yeah,
experience.
fantastic.
Yeah,
And
mate, that is not an insignificant achievement, mate. That's fantastic. Hats off.
now there were 2 11s tournaments I didn't get to. There was the BrisCon tournament, and there was the Gold Coast Cup, which wasn't as big as some of the ones I did make it to, but certainly room for growth over the next couple of years. I made it to 3 out of the 5 sevens events for the year,
If only you hadn't missed that last one.
which luckily I did make the third one.
Yes.
And so the Rat Street boys at the Bundy Rumble certainly overachieved based on my expectations for the event. I can definitely say that I was not expecting to be that successful or to take away that many points. But certainly for the Bundy Rumble this year, you can definitely bet to yourself that the Rat Streets will be back.
Yeah, with only 400 TV, I'm caring about big time. No, there's a
Moving
bit of
along,
that.
certainly I'm going to make myself at the very least one massive challenge is that I'm going to paint at least one team this year and take it to an event, but I'm going to have it painted before I play any games with it.
Can we pick the team? Can we pick the team?
No. No. There, there's 3 different teams in contention at the moment, but there's one very solid contender at the top of the list. But
Is it your Terra Australis team?
well, they're definitely on the list, but I'll probably end up playing a game with them before they get fully painted. But my goal is there will be at least one team fully painted before I played a single game with them, and then they will make at least one appearance at a tournament this year.
Nice.
Anything
Nice.
beyond that, harkening back to last year, I think it's putting too much pressure on myself. But there'll be between 2 and 4 tournaments I get to for 11s this year. I don't know how many sevens tournaments I get to, but I'll definitely get to the Bundy Rumble. Definitely getting up to Cairns for Fumble in the Jungle. And big shout out to Ken, who's bringing some boys from the southeast corner just to spoil my party and stop me getting 3 in a row. And good luck to them. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, you show them what Gerbil's made
Don't
of.
don't take that sitting down.
Yeah.
Hey, I reckon we're almost at wrap up, almost at shout outs and winding up the episode. But eagle-eared listeners, hang on, eagle-eared, that doesn't work. Eagles don't have brilliant ears. What has
Ears like a
fantastic hearing?
fox.
Okay, yeah.
Eagle-eyed. Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's it. All right, fox-eared listeners will notice that I didn't have a second goal. I had a first, a third, and a fourth goal for 2026. So, yeah, qualify for the ASC, which is going to be tough. Queensland coaches are very good, and there's lots of them. Paint a team, and my weight goal remains. But I didn't have a second because I wanted to say, actually, my goal really ties to this very podcast. And I wanted to say, we have some goals that we want to, cement. And so I want to make sure that some of my time, my hobby time, is spent in terms of ensuring high quality podcast listening for Down Underworld denizens. Some of those is we want to make sure that we're continuing our road to Malta. And we can confirm as we listen that we have actually fundraised $1,305 towards getting the 3 of us to Malta. So thank you in particular to those people who jumped in for the raffle, those people who have helped us by purchasing a Death Roller Croc or Mrs. Davy Jones. That money is not even in our total yet. And to Ewan, who is the proud owner of the Down Under Wood denizens competing at CanCon this weekend coming. So yeah, just wanted to say that my fourth goal is really around making sure you, as a listener, continue to hear the best possible podcast that we can deliver for you. And if you've got any suggestions, you've got any ideas about how we can improve it, let us know. Keen to hear. That's my shout out for the episode.
There you go. Well, my last one, I suppose, a resolution of mine is I'm actually going to take a leaf out of Wiltz's and just go, I want to be happy with everything I do in Blood Bowl this year. So I want to go to tournaments and not put the pressure and saying, yes, I have to win, I have to make this team, I have to do this. I just want to be happy with the team that I take. Do I have fun playing them? I'm hoping that results come from that, but I'm happy to finish last on the table if I enjoy every game. So that's a kind of, I don't want to say it's blowing it off and going, oh, I'm not doing any. It's one of those things that in this day and age we talk about health and well-being and so on, and like Wilt said, you can sometimes put too much pressure on yourself. So I'm happy to go into a tournament without any forethought of winning the thing, but as long as I'm having fun. Any other resolutions I've got? No, I will be bringing the Slann again. And I suppose my final shout out is it's not going to be the casualty bin this year. It's just going to be win, win, win.
Nicely done, Millsy. And I don't have anything specific as a shout out at this exact moment or as a catchy phrase to sign off with. Certainly not going to be Chaos Undivided, but we're going to be looking for models no longer unpainted.
I like it.
Hey, just before we finally leave, just wanted to mention, of course, that our painting competition is still going until episode 23 drops. You've got time. It's not too late to enter. That is, you need to paint something in an Aussie theme, and you can win a Terra Australis team if you are the winner of that painting competition. We already have 2 entries finished, and there are 8 entries in train. So, well, 6 if you include the 2 that are finished. If you don't include the 2 that are finished. So yeah, just make sure you get that. Get involved if you're at all keen. You've still got time. You've still got about a month. But finally, Millsy, we mentioned briefly Gold Coast Cup in terms of goals. Bill said he couldn't make it, and unfortunately, he won't be able to make Gold Coast Cup in 2026 because it will not run. Millsy, what's happening in its stead? We have 7 qualification tournaments for the Queensland Series. We can't run Gold Coast Cup. What's happening instead?
I believe we're going to have the Bundy Brawl. Yes, that's right. Keeping with my branding of having Bundy themed events. So I've had Bundy Cups as my little local sevens event. I've had Bundy Rumble, which is the world's first 2-day beach bowl event. I'm very happy to say that Babs put it to people in our community and to our Queensland captain of Chris Stratford and saying, look, if we can't go ahead, Millsy's good to go with this. So May 16 and 17 will be round 3 of the Queensland 11s qualifying series, and stay tuned for more details. It'll be held here in sunny Bundaberg.
That's a wrap.
That's brilliant.
Representing Australia at the Eurobowl in 2026 in Warsaw in Poland, coming from the state of Victoria, and this is their NAF names, not their actual names, is Lank22, Magneto AU, and Helia Cohen 84. From New South Wales is, of course, ClayInfinity as team captain, Gumby, who is from New South Wales, but I believe resides in the UK at the moment, Magic Pirate, Meowcats, Ronnie Scrollman, and Whiskey Mancer. And then coming from Queensland is Kiltane, also known as Kiltane Quilty, Lack of Cheese, or Dimitri Klemenko, and Laidlaw, who is Andrew Laidlaw Jones. So that is the 12 that will make up Team Australia. From here, they will be divided up into both the Eurobowl and the Europen teams. And of course, if somebody can't make it, we have a couple of reserves. So that is the team for heading to Poland for Eurobowl and Europen. Congratulations, guys. Just want to say well done for making the team.
No, I just thought of half a question is how much consideration goes into playing a team that you enjoy and playing a team that you think will do well at the event?
That's a good question, actually. The people who are in, that we're considering already, I've asked them to sort of tell me about the teams that they enjoy, comfortable with, and also conversely, the teams that they're not good with. Like, for example, for me personally, I just have never been able to get Lizardmen. It's just a team that I struggle to play with and play against. And everyone has their own personal views. And then, as I said, we've been, particularly the last 48 hours, we've been crunching a lot of rosters on and there's a website that has the rule pack in it. And there are some races that do very poorly. And obviously there's the stunties and those sort of things, but some rosters look very strong, like High Elves look really good, Wood Elves look good, and surprisingly Snotlings look really good. And this is this sort of debate, like you're going to the most competitive tournament in the world and you're going to take Snotlings. Like these sort of judgment calls also come down to, what's the coach comfortable playing with. So I'm not going to sort of ask a guy to play Snotlings if he's never played Snotlings before. So there's this is why the play testing is very important. So we'll find 12 guys because people need to book flights and commit financially and commit to annual leave from their job and so forth. Some of the people I've spoken to, and my wife will be coming as well, and tacking on a European holiday and all those sorts of things. You just can't pop to Poland for a weekend. And so now is the time to commit to the event. But in terms of committing to what you're playing, we've got some time up our sleeve. And so the play testing will come into it. And then it might be that someone will play Eurobowl and someone will play Europen because of the racial mix-up and what we think is a good race and what's not a good race versus a coach's level of comfort and their ability to play. So yeah, it's and you add all this in with the 2025 meta that no one understands. So like Orcs, for example, are traditionally a very strong tier 1 team. But what does Taunt do? And Biggins, only having 2 Biggins and 2 Blitzers and running a couple of Goblins, it's a very different play style in 2025. So I actually think this Eurobowl will be quite chaotic in terms of the meta. Out of the 30 teams that represented last year, there was not a single stunty team. There was probably only 2 teams that used the star player. I think that's going to change a lot in the 2026 edition in Poland.
And so that uncertainty and instability, perceived or otherwise, in the meta and in roster building, do you think that'll actually help Australia improve their standings based on the last couple of years?
Well, it won't hurt, and if we get above 30th, then we're improving.
And look, we are kind of the plucky little fellows from down under. So we've traditionally, sports wise, and in warfare for that matter, we tend to punch above our weight.
I think if I have joked that I don't want to talk about Budapest too much, but the reality was that when we put the squad together, we only had what I'd call 5 bona fide Australians, and then we had 2 guys from Europe who had one had an Australian mother and an Australian grandmother. So the rules of eligibility of being in your country, it's the same as FIFA. You need to have parentage, and they've never played for another country. So there were 2 guys from Malta who had Australian parentage, had never played for Team Malta. So they were able to pledge allegiance to Team Australia. And so then again, yes, they're in the mix as well for this coming edition as well. But that only made 7, and we ended up making use of the Eurobowl has rules around what they call freebooters. So if you can't make a team, you can draft someone in. So we actually had a fully fledged bona fide Englishman in the squad, and so we were a bit hamstrung in terms of what teams or what coaches could be available. And then we took a very conservative view on races. And we were thinking, if we can get 7 draws and 1 win, we win each match. So we built teams to not lose. And unfortunately, once you had a few losses, then winning the tie becomes very, very difficult. And so this year, we're trying to be a little bit more cavalier and aggressive and play races that have a little bit more strike and so forth. So the best players in the squad will play the best teams and that sort of attitude. So I think Budapest was very much a view on conservatism. And I think the coming one in Warsaw will be a little bit more aggressive and come out and try and win some games rather than trying not to lose games. And that mentality should give us a much better result, I feel. In
I
Athens the year
expect so.
before, we had a full 8 Australian guys, and we had some very good players, and we all played races we were comfortable with in the meta, and we went 3 wins, 3 losses, and came mid-table, and tied on the same number of points as Team England, which is one of the fancy ones. But in Budapest, we went 0-6 and came stone motherless last. So this year as well, I've ramped up the social media engagement, the Discord chat. Having this conversation with yourselves is part of that. Trying to get more interest, trying to get better quality coaches to put their hand up, and then when we get to the selection table and the racial selection, being a little bit more aggressive in terms of what races will make up the squad. So we can't go any further backwards unless Brazil comes in and we come behind them. But this year coming in 2026, we're looking to get back into the sort of 50-50 would be a pass mark. If we can try and get a better than 50-50 record, that'd be fantastic.
Excellent. And very cheekily, I'm going to suggest that if there's any anonymous benefactors out there that want to fund a coach to get over to Warsaw, then I know a snotling coach who'd be pretty keen to get over to Poland and represent, right, Wilts?
Oh, I wouldn't say no, that's for sure.
Wilts, Mildy, Babs, yourself. Like if you want to be considered, by all means, put your hands up. When we first did this thing back for Athens in 24, there was a discussion, maybe we should ask tournament organisers, put their ticket prices up $5 or something. And to be honest, no, I don't think, unless, some corporate benefactor wants to come in, but asking people to donate and all those sort of things, that's not part of what we're doing. I think this is an endeavour that people can get themselves to Europe if they want to go, and financially fund themselves. So there's no professionalism in this team. It's very much self-funded. We're complete amateurs. But if Telstra wants to sponsor us for $1 million, I'm not going to say no.
I thought you said one of the criteria for the team was cash, Clay. I thought that was your subtle hint that you're a member of the referees and what is it? The RAG. What does it stand for? Referees Allied something Guild, whatever it is in the NAF.
Yeah, no. It's your own cash to fund your own ticket and hotel, and your own beer money. I can send you the Discord link. We'll be ramping up the social media. So if you're on Discord, you'll be able to easily find out what we're doing.
Yeah, we'd love to chat about it on our podcast if that's okay with you.
Not a problem. But I'll keep in touch, Babs. The social media aspect of it will be promoting the team, trying to get people to be aware of the team, so that when we come round to it'll be 2028 actually, because 27 is a World Cup year, that we'd like to sort of have this concept a regular thing and having a nice selection headache every year. So we'll be trying to do some sort of self-promoting as well, just to keep the concept up in the air. And then are you guys planning to go to a World Cup in Malta in 27?
That's the one.
Oh yeah, count us in.
That's the plan.
Yep, we're there for sure.
Yeah, we fundraised for ourselves to get there. We're currently sitting at over $1,300 we've raised through our own initiatives towards us getting to the World Cup. There's a reason why we deliberately steer away from cash prizes at Blood Bowl events, right? Like there's something where it suddenly becomes too competitive in a negative way.
Yeah. Money is the root of all evil, as they say. So
we actually did have a corporate sponsor for the Queensland team. And their initial offer was to give $500 off airfares for the 6 players on the team to the Ausbowl State Champs, and we actually said no, don't do that. That's not what we want to do. And instead, we came up with a much more egalitarian model where it was basically everybody got free swag if they came to New Zealand, whether they were on the team or not. And it was just a much better vibe and a much better feel as a result.
Yeah, because you guys had a lot of Queenslanders go to the Greenstone, didn't you?
Yeah, we had 9 of us in the Greenstone Cup.
Yeah.
Big Pav raid.
Yeah. Well, it's always a good Pav raid if you're winning.
Oh, I got 2 points for the BAF. I was happy.
Yeah, and Will's
No,
got
I
one. Yep, Millsy got 2 points. Will's got one. Let's not talk about what I did.
-2. Thanks, Babs.
Yeah. No, but it's good to collaborate on these things because, obviously your airfares and accommodation, and that's a very personal choice in terms of whether you want to stay in a youth hostel or the Ritz-Carlton. But things like jerseys and dice and a gift for your opposition, that's a very big tradition in Eurobowl. And so when you add up the costs of the mandatory jersey, the mandatory dice, it's another few $100 per player, as well as the airfare and accommodation. So it is a financial commitment for people to go to Eurobowl, and maybe a raffle would be good to pay for the jerseys or something like that.
That's what our corporate sponsor did. Yeah, dice and jerseys.
Yeah.
We were the big swag giveaway for Queensland, and we also ended up with stuff for ourselves.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Clay.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Keep in touch.
Not a problem, mate.
Cheers.
Will
Cheers.
do.
That's the one bit. Anyway, sorry, Millsy. You can edit this as best you can.
It'll be fun.
I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Yep,
We're all going to chip in and get you internet for Christmas, Babs.
One of those little scratch cards.
Yeah.
Down Underworld Denizens discusses games, workshops, games, and products such as Blood Bowl, Gutter Bowl, Dungeon Bowl, and Crunch. We also discuss other fantasy football board games and concepts from other companies such as Dread Ball, Guild Ball, Grind, Elf Ball, Myth and Goal, Blitz Bowl, Chaos Ball, Monsters of the Midway, and Feud Ball. We discuss products and services such as miniatures or software made by producers suitable for several of these board games. Games Workshop terms and conditions in point 2.1 state they grant the user the non-exclusive right to use their authorised intellectual property for broadcasting and other media-related activities such as commentary and opinion pieces, blogs, and other similar informational and descriptive purposes. Down Underworld Denizens respects and honours these terms.